So this is what I'm going to talk about. My new movement was I realized last year we needed to start talking about issues because in all of my classes, we never talked about politics. Even though we might have seen a film about an issue, we didn't talk about the issue. We talked about how we felt about seeing people and their points of view, what surprised us maybe, how we stereotype people. And I thought I had a real crisis last year because I thought, oh, I don't want to have like these talks about climate change, about homelessness, these thorny problems that would just be dueling facts and emotional reasoning and partisan, doubling down. So I had this idea to take policies that have already happened and talk about how they got formed. So we're going to do one tonight that I'll tell you in a minute. What problem they were trying to solve and what happened, what were the unintended consequences. Because I want us not to talk about this issue. It's actually about plastic bags. We're not here to redebate plastic bags or what we think about it. I want us to think about how we think about policy. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So that's my why. Some people say, well, why should we depolarize? Why should we work together? And there's lots of reasons one might choose, like it's a spiritual thing, it's a religious thing, we are all one. It's also sometimes we work with people or we have people in our homes, our households that are on other sides than us. But there's another thing that's purely practical. It's pragmatic to work together to get things done. As things are, one regime will set something up and the next one just turns it over, or if Congress can't do its job, they're arguing they're not working together like they're supposed to. So tonight, these are our goals. I want to understand the complexity of a problem, to explore how we think about a policy, not what we think. Not to debate the issue or to come up with a solution, not to convince one another, not to come to consensus, and not to pick a side. I want us to stay in exploring mode. And really, this is an opportunity to practice not rushing to have a conclusion or an opinion. Because I think that's what gets in our way a lot is we don't like to be uncertain. We don't like not to know. So often we rush to a conclusion or opinion, and added to, if your team or your side or your tribe believes the same thing, there's this feeling of safety. I would call it a false sense of safety, that you are on the right side of an issue, or at least you've circled the wagons. So there's a few things that I call the on-ramp. And I hope if I like doing this and enough people like what I'm doing, we will talk about other issues in the future. So we'll see how this goes. So when I first started getting into this last year, maybe the year before, when I started getting curious about policy, how's it made? Why is it made? How, what happens? I had to learn a few things first. And these are things that might, to you in this room, seem self-evident. But for me, I was pretty ignorant. And I'm not being self-debasing. I just didn't know. So every possible solution, I'm not talking about changing a light bulb. I'm talking about what they call thorny problems, complex problems. Every possible solution has trade-offs. So some people, I think, have the notion that there's magic bullets. If we just do this and put money in it and, it's a great idea, it should work. But there's always a trade-off. That's one of the things I learned. And good intentions alone are not enough. How many times have I heard or even said, it seemed like such a good idea at the time. But when good intentions meet complex systems or complex problems, outcomes can be much different from what we hoped. There are too many variables. There are too many interwoven systems that are unpredictable when you make a change. There are always unintended consequences. And that's why we need viewpoint diversity. Who's heard that word, that phrase, viewpoint diversity? Yeah, it's not from being here. Diversity is a big word these days, but usually people don't talk or welcome really viewpoint diversity. But we need, it's like when there's an idea, it really is good for robust, like what could possibly go wrong? Like what about, it's not that people might be negative, right? But there's something about pushing hard on an idea to make sure it's viable, like good science. They push on the ideas, or they used to anyway. So that's another thing I learned. Then solving one problem often creates another. Like I just said before, there's these interlocking, interrelated, interdependent elements. So sometimes you solve for one thing. It's like that game whack-a-mole. You whack-a-mole and another one comes up here, right? So part of the problem with any of this, and now I'm going to put on my partisan lens. If I have a partisan point of view about whatever we're talking about, and I am refusing to hear what I'm going to talk about it in a binary way, but of course there's lots of nuances in between two positions. If I refuse to hear another point of view because they're on the left or the right, and I don't like those people, or I think they're evil or malintentioned, or that they're an existential threat, I am not going to be able to get the biggest picture that I can. And that's why what I was saying at the beginning, and this has really been such a process for me. This is not how I started off, but I realize what I'm trying to do is help us build capacity. I mean, if I think I have to summarize, to have capacity with our nervous systems, with our mind, with our consciousness even, to be able to see the biggest view that we can. And then you might come up with the same conclusion that you already had about X issue, but then you will understand how everything's working together, or as close as any of us can get. The other thing I've learned, and more recently, that every issue or most issues involve colliding concerns. So one party might be concerned about how much it's going to cost, and another party might be, I mean, party person or group might be concerned with providing benefits for someone. But if you make it into like, oh, all these people are trying to have too much care, and these people are too cold and economically based, both should be married. Do you see what I'm saying? If you say that, if somebody says about an idea, well, where's the money going to come from? Or how's the money been spent in the past? Sometimes we'll look at that as like, oh, they're heartless. And then you see other people that are full of heart, but maybe aren't very practical. One of the whole point of being able to zoom out like this is so these things that seem like they're opposites can marry. Because you have too much care, you often don't see the bigger picture and what's necessary or what could go wrong, the unintended consequences. And if you have too much pragmatism, you don't necessarily have the vision or see what can be done, right? We need all of these things, I think, that we think are opposites, we need both of. And this is not a new theory. It's been talked about in all kinds of realms. The other thing I learned is that there are long chains of causes and effect, and I noticed that people like to blame someone. Or you think? But it really is, especially again, on simple problems, what they call tame problems, it's who's going to change the light bulb, right? But on these things that keep on plaguing us, it's really hard to go back and say, well, where did the first blow start? Mm-hmm. And what happens often is when we get caught in a narrative that it's X's fault, it becomes its own closed system. And so we can't even see the new way out. And it's not about whitewashing history. Yeah, all that happened. But what do we do now? And that's a lot about policy too. Some of the things can be determined by policy. If it's one thing you take away tonight, I hope it's this. Policy debates often look like disagreements about solutions, but mostly they're disagreements about human behavior, how people will react or act. Oops. Oops, sorry, that was what I wanted. So some people believe if we change the rules, behavior will change. And other people believe if we change the rules, people will adapt in ways we didn't anticipate. What do I mean by that? I mean workarounds, loopholes, disobeying, things that I know that we've noticed in personal lives and political lives. So think about this a minute. When policy is being made, it's a prediction about human behavior. How are people going to act? How are they acting now? What will they do if we do this? And it can be with a carrot, it can be with fines, it can be with bans. There's all kinds of ways policy tries to make people do things or not do things, right? And there's another point that we aren't going to go down this rabbit hole tonight, but who's trying to make these rules? Who's trying to make the policy? Because what would be right for me, and I think the best thing may not be the right thing for you. So it's just like so mind-blowing, really, when you think about all this, how we get along as well as we do. So yes, often whether a policy succeeds or fails, how to do has to do with how human behavior was predicted, and then what happened. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Two people can look at the same issue and see different things. Often we don't take that as a good, but this is good. This is viewpoint diversity. And we need to have as many eyeballs on a thing and consider when we're trying to figure out what to do. What might another perspective help us see? What blind spot of my own might it point out? So here we go. Do you all think that banning the thin plastic, grocery bag stores was a good idea? No? Who thinks it was a good idea? Raise your hand. And who's aware of it? Raise your hand. So you think it was good to ban those throwaway plastic bags? Okay. Who didn't think it was a good idea? 1, 2. Okay. This is already good. So why did they, because in Oregon, and I'll get into this more too, why did they ban plastic bags? And I'm talking about the throwaway plastic bags that you get at the grocery store. To reduce waste, largely for litter, ocean pollution, wildlife impacts, and waste management. But more specifically, in Oregon, we'll go through the legislation, it was to reduce single-use plastics. Because instead of people throwing these things, using them once and throwing them away, they wanted them to use paper or plastic bags more often. Okay. So how many of you reuse these plastic bags? What for? Throw out some ideas, what you use them for. Vegetables?
Yeah, same as in the first time shopping, I would take them again and again.
Right, okay.
Not the thin ones, they don't work.
That's true.
Well, like people use them for dog poop, or they use them, I put leftovers in them, or wet bathing suits, or a number of things. I mean, I always kept them. All right. Now we're going to watch this short clip. It's about 5 or 6 minutes.
Plastic bags are banned in the US. Oh, wait. Well, kind of. The goal of the ban is to keep 23 billion single-use carry-out plastic bags out of landfill each year and to decrease plastic litter around the state and in our waterways. But with several exceptions for certain plastic bags and research on the unintended environmental consequences of these bans, I want to know, are plastic bag bans sustainable? I'm Lucy Biggers, and this is One Small Step. Don't get me wrong, there are a ton of environmental benefits to plastic bag bans. For one, these bans decrease litter. The city of San Jose saw an 89% reduction in plastic bags in their storm drains and a 60% reduction of plastic litter in their creeks and rivers after instituting its plastic bag ban and fee. Secondly, these bag bans can reduce demand for fossil fuels. By one estimate, in the coming decades, about 2.2 million barrels of oil will go towards making single-use plastics globally each day. So reducing single-use plastic bag use will reduce oil use. And finally, bans protect recycling infrastructure. New York's Department of Environmental Conservation surveyed multiple recycling facilities in the state, and they reported a range of costs between $300,000 to $1 million annually to deal with plastic bags caught in the recycling systems. But these bans aren't perfect, and the alternatives to plastic bags have their own environmental consequences. One study looked at the life cycle of paper bags, a common replacement for plastic bags, and they found they have a higher carbon footprint than thin plastic bags. In fact, you need to use a paper bag 3 times before its carbon footprint is equal to that of a single-use plastic bag.
Thin plastic bags do really well in life cycle assessments because they're so thin. There's just not much material there, so they have a low carbon footprint.
Dr. Rebecca Taylor is a researcher and economist who has studied the unintended consequences of these plastic bag bans.
However, paper bags do biodegrade, so if they do end up as litter, then the paper bag can be better. If they all go to the landfill, then you would prefer the thinnest bag possible.
In her research, Rebecca found that after California's plastic bag ban, plastic waste decreased by 40 million pounds. But small garbage bag sales rose by 120%.
When people no longer could reuse their grocery bags as garbage bags, they had to start buying these garbage bags. Purchases of garbage bags increased the most for people who have pets, people who have little children, babies, and buy diapers, as well as discount shoppers, people who are more frugal and thus are probably more likely to be reusing these bags more to save money than necessarily to be green.
Would you still argue that having a policy like this in place is good for the environment?
It depends on the metric that you're concerned with. When we look at who's implementing these type of regulations, they tend to be in coastal areas or areas where there's waterways. Plastic litter is particularly costly if you have waterways that can be clogged by these type of materials. If you're in an area without a waterway, then potentially you have less of a concern of the litter itself, in which case you might worry more about the carbon footprint. It's a balancing act between 2 different types of environmental metrics. And that's why, there's not necessarily one solution for everyone.
Talking to Rebecca made me realize that these bag bans are complicated, but we're getting one in New York March 1st. So I've come to the launch of our bag ban with the Department of Sanitation, and we're going to be learning how it's going to work. What has been the response from the community?
It's been very good. And I always say this, we come from mostly here is African-American and Caribbean or Latino background. And in their countries, they don't have plastic bags. So if you're gonna have a plastic bag, you have to ask for it outright. So the community's been doing a really good job of being able to transition out of it.
So on March 1st, the state has banned plastic bags. So you will no longer be able to get one at your local grocery store. There's a fee in New York City on single-use paper bags. We really want to make sure that we're getting reusable bags to everyone so that they don't need to pay it.
I've seen some research that paper bags have a bigger carbon footprint than plastic because they're heavier. Are you worried that people will just replace the plastic bag with paper and then we'll have another issue?
I think that what we're really focused on and why the council decided to implement the fee was to discourage that.
Okay, this fee needs a bit of an explanation. Part of New York's plastic bag ban allows cities and counties to elect to add a 5-cent fee on all paper takeout bags. This is actually good because there's some evidence that these fees make bag bans more effective. This point was proven after Chicago enacted a plastic bag ban in 2015. Lawmakers banned all plastic bags thinner than 2.25 thousandths of an inch, which, if you can believe it, is the distance between these 2 points. Yeah, it's impossible to see. It is so thin. Any plastic bag thinner than this was banned. Everything thicker was allowed. So instead of cutting down on bags, stores just started giving customers thicker plastic bags. And this well-meaning Chicago law ended up causing residents to use more plastic. In response to that debacle, Chicago repealed the bag ban and enacted a 7-cent tax on all single-use bags. no matter the material or thickness. Because of this tax, the city saw single-use bag use go down by 33%. Here in New York, our new law bans all plastic bags thinner than 10 thousandths of an inch, which is about 4 times thicker than what Chicago banned. Policymakers tell me this is thick enough to prevent what happened in Chicago. As of this recording, only 3 counties in New York have adopted a fee: New York City, Tompkins, and Suffolk counties. In the areas with no fee, there is a risk that people will just start using paper bags when they check out. And like Rebecca pointed out earlier, paper has its own environmental issues. Also, I should add that these fees do not apply for people on assistance programs like SNAP or WIC.
So it's complicated. Pauline, why did you say, because you were the first one to say you didn't think it was a good idea? And I meant to ask you then, why didn't you think it was a good idea?
It has to do with the value placed on plastic and what it's used for and how it's being regulated. For instance, wow, that's really bright. Can you pull those guns? Okay. There's so many things made with plastic. Containers for every sort of food in the major part of the store, and on and on. And for me, a plastic bag ban doesn't go far enough. And when I was a child, there were some things made with plastic. We had an enormous more of glass containers that were used for shopping goods in the store. Baby foods came in glass, milk came in glass, and so on. So,
Right. Okay.
it just didn't have any. It's like putting a wart bandage on a 12-inch scar, a 12-inch wound. It just doesn't do anything.
Thank you, because that's a point that has not come up for me. So thank you. I learned something new tonight. I didn't think about it that way. So this is the second thing that I hope you take away. And Pauline has even added more to what I already knew. It's complicated and it depends. That's when in my classes, people who take them long term, one of the things they most report is that they're so relieved not to have an opinion about every single thing. And they are really able to say now in all humility, and they're happy about it, that they don't know enough about X to have an opinion about it. I think that's a really great place to start. That's what I'm talking about. The capacity almost comes from emptying out so that you can take other things in, other points of view. Oops. So Oregon state law. Some of you might know this. I didn't know this till I started studying this for this presentation. So in 2020, they banned the thin checkout bags. Then, like we saw in the clip, people just started using thicker ones. So in January 1st, 2027, they will be banning all plastic checkout bags, concluding, so this wasn't a ballot measure. This isn't something we voted on. These are what our legislators decided. They concluded that thicker bags were not achieving the environmental impacts that they hoped for. Okay, so the key assumptions for this particular policy, so I'm not talking about waste right now. We're just talking about the human behavior of what the law was trying to do, the policy was trying to do, and what happened. The assumptions were made that people will use fewer disposable plastic bags and people will reuse thicker bags many more times. So the policy effectivity, even if like through Pauline's lens, it doesn't matter anyway. These are it's a Band-Aid on like a gaping wound, right? It's another point, like I'm so glad you said that. I really feel like, oh yeah, I never thought about that. So do you see if they make if a policy is made to try to get people to do or not do something, and they are not behaving, the policy isn't making them do what they want to do, they have to keep changing it. That's where they're changing it again. But guess what? How did people respond to this ban? Okay, there were fewer thin plastic bags, but as we saw in the clip, it's like a question of like nanometers. more paper bags were used, more thicker plastic bags. But here I want to say, this is the point that strikes me the most. There were more purchased trash bags. So is it really getting, is it even making it worse? And there is, you know, some economic cost shifted to consumers. So as they point out in the clip, some people don't have extra money to buy trash bags. Go ahead.
And could anybody who was establishing policy have thought ahead of time that other people would have to purchase trash bags and that the oil barons would not lose a dime and it would all look good on paper?
Well,
As another viewpoint.
as another viewpoint, but see, this is why I'm feeling it, you know, when you get partisan, I'm on these policy talks. If I continue, I don't want to talk about in terms of left and right, because the audience right away unconsciously says, oh, I'm for them, I'm against them. And even with policy votes, when we are voting on things on the ballots, we're often voting party lines, or we're looking who has been for and against the policies and say, well, I like those people, I'll have what they're having. But what I really am excited about for myself, first of all, like how to think about things before I have an opinion about them. And I might conclude, it's too complicated, I don't know, but that's cool. That's not saying, well, I'm going to agree with my friends on this certain party because they're my tribe or they must be right. It's like, I really want I want me to be able to think about things. And of course, we can't do it with every little thing, but we can know. We can know we don't know everything. So the people who said that they thought that getting rid of the plastic bags at the beginning, how do you feel now after seeing this? Did it change your mind at all?
Yeah, made me think, yes, I wouldn't have voted that way.
So now if we did another vote, and I'm not, you know, I'm just trying to, it's human behavior, right? And we're humans and this is how we're behaving. And some people don't even want to change their minds. Do you know, they just dig in.
Because it's simpler.
Yeah. Well, that's part of our human operating system to make shortcuts. Thank you.
It requires investments to understand. So, how do you value that in the equation? I'm just gonna use a plastic bag or, so it's hard. It's like, okay, how do you get there?
Right. Right. And how do you know? Like, I don't have all the capacity to do this with every little thing, I mean, there's other really interesting things we could do, like measure 110 with the drug use, or the, what's the other thing that I'm just blanking on, sorry. The stealing under $950 in California, that was only a misdemeanor instead of a felony. And they're reversing a lot of these things. Measure 110, they're reversing. They might reverse the bike lane in Medford. But it's, Colleen, kind of to your point, like, when are these policies made? Because they kind of make us feel good, like we're doing something. Or we're showing that we're concerned or whatever, right? There's that in there too somewhere. Let's see what else they've
And
got.
I also thought, if we get rid of those thinner plastics, people would go to bags, cotton bags or whatever.
Oh,
But then I've heard, okay, well, we end up with all of these clothes that don't just, decompose. So now we've got all these, heavier bags. So that doesn't
You
solve
mean
it.
the clothes that are made with polyester or what?
Well,
Because we have
but-
polyester bags too.
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
But I'm getting chills because I love how we're just seeing, these, even such a simple thing as a plastic bag is complex.
And it's not an issue of left and right.
No, it shouldn't be, although some of these policies get parsed out like that, but this should be non-political. Totally, yeah.
Well, I just think it's interesting the way, there's the environmental thing about these plastic bags, but as you say in this slide here, there's a money thing that goes through it all. If you charge people for plastic bags, would the social engineering be different, and also the cost of the recycling, which is maybe not seen. But so, you know, all of through this thing, there's that money thing going through, which I find interesting as well.
Right, and thank you for that. Yeah, and some people, I've heard some people actually, I feel like they need to take Econ 101. They don't think it matters. You know, they think it's a bad thing, that money's bad, but it's a thing, it's what, no matter what you think about money, it is our system of how things have to work. Okay, let's see what's next. Okay, so what concerns are colliding? Environmental protection and everyday needs, but convenience. Human behavior, we like convenience, right? And so if you think, you know, it kind of like build it and they will come, build the bike lanes and they will come, which I don't think has proven to be true. But it's like where vision needs to meet pragmatism. And then reducing waste versus how people actually behave, human behavior. They're going to go and buy the plastic bags that they were using the thinner plastic bags for, right? Well, I don't know if this is germane now with our talk, but how many of you reuse the thicker bags more than the thin bags? I did this, for me, it was the same.
Way different.
It was different?
Yeah.
You used more?
I used more thinner ones. Like the thicker ones I couldn't use over my.
Oh,
clothespins.
okay,
I hate when I grab one that was not, I couldn't use.
right.
But now you can bring your plastic bags to the recycler, which is crazy.
I'm asking.
I don't know, exactly, yeah, exactly.
I haven't interviewed anybody recently, maybe up.
They thought they were turning garbage ships around.
I know they were doing that with dirty garbage, like dirty plastic bags and things like that. That's what I believe I know. Yeah.
And now we have microbes, funguses that are eating plastic. Actually, they have morphed and are eating plastic.
Just naturally, like in the,
The earth figures it out.
Evolution.
okay, so. Okay, so this ban takes place on January 1st, where there'll be no plastic bags at all given away at checkout. So what do you think people will do? And do you think it will resolve the problem that it was trying to resolve? Will people will it create more double usage of bags? But I don't think it can't happen.
This is your whack-a-mole problem.
Right,
That's what it looks like to me.
right. And so they're just going to purchase bags, right? Or use paper bags.
People, the stores paid people to take their own bags. Some of the stores in Ashland, do you remember that? Used to give you a few cents, but if you took a.
Oh, they do now, right? Yeah, they give you a couple pennies.
Yes.
That's not why I bring the bags for the.
But that always was a very strong incentive for me.
Really?
Yes, I pick up pennies.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear they're collecting them.
Okay. Oh, the pennies, yeah, because they're going to disappear. You're going to be rich. Any more about that? Okay, let me see what else I have here. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, we're opening it up now. Like, but one of my taglines is look again. Look again. And that's what's I'm writing essays now on Substack, and that's a lot of the thread that's running through it. But to be able to look again, we have to have more inner capacity, right? I can use the words closed and open-minded, but it's much broader than that, but that's kind of a descriptor, right?